I never imagined a simple translation could lead to a billionaire's heartfelt revelation. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My hands trembled as I sat across from him, a wall of silence hanging thick between us. The air buzzed with unspoken words, charged, electric, like a storm brewing just out of sight. His eyes, usually so sharp and confident, were filled with something deeper: regret? Fear? It began just a week prior, an innocuous job offer that seemed almost too good to be true. Translate a few documents, a nominal fee. I thought I was just another pair of hands helping in a corporate world I barely understood. Little did I know, the letters on that paper contained more than just English and Mandarin translations. They held secrets wrapped in luxury and whispered in boardrooms, worlds that felt entirely out of reach for someone like me. My mentor had warned me about getting involved with people of power. "They're not like us," he said, his voice heavy with gravity. I didn't listen. I needed the money. Dreams of bills paid floated through my mind, bitter-sweet like a half-remembered lullaby. My fingers warmed to the keyboard, translating the cold faceless words. But there was something about the cracks in those documents, the way they were stitched together, that hinted at something hidden. As I dug deeper, shadows began to swirl around my understanding. Phone calls that ended too abruptly. Glances exchanged like daggers in crowded rooms. I could sense the whispers, the tension in the air almost palpable. Then, there was the night of the revelation. I barely slept, my heart racing. An email pinged like an alarm bell in the dark. The subject line sent chills down my spine: "Your translation, discover the truth." All I had was an anchor of curiosity to pull me into the depths of a mystery I didn't comprehend. That night, I approached him, the billionaire shrouded in allure and darkness. Try not to look intimidated, I told myself, knowing the odds were stacked against me. The rich mahogany of his desk gleamed under the flickering light. He looked up, his gaze meeting mine, and for a heartbeat, everything stood still. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "What did you find?" he asked, his voice low, a gravelly whisper that sent shivers along my spine. There was something in the way he held himself, an urgency that hinted at desperation. I felt my throat tighten, a lump rising as I struggled to answer. The weight of the truth pressed down on me, and then it happened: a flash of understanding. The words shifted in my mind, and with them, the realization that I was uncovering a secret that could shake the foundations of his world. But just as I was about to reveal what I knew, the door creaked open abruptly. Cold air rushed in, and a figure appeared, casting a long shadow across the floor. My breath caught, a sudden jolt of surprise flooding through me. "Leave her out of this," he shouted, pointing a finger at me, the tension snapping like a taut rope. I stood frozen, battling confusion and fear. Heart pounding, I realized in that moment I was no longer just a witness. I was entwined in this web of power, secrets, and unexpected revelations. What did I have that made me so crucial to this? There was a growing fire in the room, and I was unsure if I was the one being hunted or the one who had the power to change everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to slice through with a knife. My heart raced as I stared at the two men, one poised and powerful, the other wild with desperation. The billionaire's face tightened, shadows dancing across his features while the intruder's presence loomed like a storm cloud. A guttural panic swelled in my chest, drowning out the world's sounds. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. The intruder fixed his gaze on me, eyes like fragments of ice that penetrated through my feigned composure. "You need to run. They're watching. He's lying to you." His words spurred confusion, unraveling the few threads of assurance I clung to. "Stop." The billionaire barked, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Get out. This doesn't involve you." But the urgency in the intruder's voice struck a chord deep within me. I stepped toward the stranger, drawn in by a strange sense of kinship. "What do you mean?" "Trust me," he urged, his fervent gaze drilling into mine. "You're in too deep. It's not about translations or documents anymore. It's about survival." Before I could process his words, the billionaire shot up from his chair, his sudden movement startling me. I said, "Leave." His eyes were wild, fierce. They searched my face, desperation etched into his features. I could see him grappling with something profound, torn between truth and the lies that had gotten him this far. The intruder hesitated but took a step back, allowing me a glance at the strange bond that seemed to flare like electricity between the two men. I could feel their pasts intertwining, a complex tapestry of betrayal running deeper than I could fathom. "Think," the intruder growled, glancing toward the door, "before it's too late." He darted toward the exit, disappearing into the shadows as quickly as he had arrived. "Wait!" I called out impulsively, but the chill of the room swallowed my voice. Silence reigned again, thick and oppressive. The billionaire turned back towards me, the mask of power slipping momentarily to reveal a flicker of vulnerability. "Please, just forget what you've seen. Either of those paths leads to danger," he implored, his hands gripping the edge of the desk like a lifeline. The room felt heavy with secrets, and I could feel my mind racing, processing everything that had just unfolded. "You're asking me to ignore a warning? After all the evidence I've uncovered?" My voice trembled with indignation. "That's exactly what I'm asking." His plea was raw and exposed, and in that moment, I saw a glimmer of the man he once was lost in a world of shadows. "I know it sounds crazy, but it's for your own safety." Thoughts of bills and mundane troubles melted into the abyss of an unfamiliar world filled with corporate espionage and secret deals, where I was nothing more than a pawn in a high-stakes game. The surrealness of the situation pulled at my sanity, and I took a deep breath to quell the storm inside. "That I can't just walk away, can I?" I murmured. "There's so much at stake." A silence stretched between us, heavy and laden with unspoken truths. I could feel the emotional clash of our worlds, a world of power and opulence juxtaposing the fragility of ordinary life. Curiosity prickled against fear within me, a delicate dance that left me teetering on the brink. Then, from someplace deep inside, an ember of hope flickered, but at what cost? The growing sense of kinship with the intruder haunted me, his warning echoing in my ears. "I am not just a translator anymore," I whispered, almost to myself. "I can't turn back." His expression softened, a mix of admiration and caution. "You may not have a choice. This isn't just about money. This is about loyalty, trust, and the lengths one goes to hide the past." Suddenly, a shattering crash echoed through the office, rattling the walls and sending shards of glass cascading to the floor. Instinctively, I gasped, eyes widening as I watched the door burst open. A group of men in sharp suits stormed in, their presence commanding and sinister. "Find her." One of them barked, scanning the room, their eyes narrowing. "She knows too much." Panic ignited in my chest, a firestorm of dread and adrenaline fueling my instinct to flee. "Run!" the billionaire shouted, his voice urgent and sharp, yet something in his tone made me hesitate, a raw vulnerability that felt strangely protective. He reached for my arm, his grip firm but gentle. "Don't let them catch you." In that nowhere moment, I faced a choice: to flee into the unknown, embracing the danger ahead, or to stay amongst the shadows, risking everything for a man enshrouded in lies. The chaos of motivations swirled around me, and a chilling uncertainty settled deep within my gut as I prepared to merge my fate with his, knowing only that I had just stepped beyond the brink. What lay ahead was an unscripted journey that could shatter both our worlds. But one thing was certain: the real game was only beginning, and I could feel its hold growing stronger around me. The air crackled with tension as I stood paralyzed, caught between the storm brewing in front of me. The chaos of men in sharp suits was a terrifying cacophony bursting into my life like lightning striking the ground, a terrifying reminder of the stakes involved. My heart thudded loudly in my chest, drowning out the commands and chaos as I tried to think, to process, to make sense of the whirlwind. Run. The billionaire's voice cut through my haze, but the fire of fear was dulled by the weight of his gaze. There was something in his eyes, a flicker of unexpected vulnerability that felt unsettlingly intimate. It was the same essence that had almost persuaded me to stay, to hear him out, to lay down my defenses. I took a breath, trying to shake myself from the stupor as the intruder's urgency resurfaced in my mind. Before I could act, his expression morphed back into one of sheer alarm. The unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed, a stampede of certainty that urged me to choose. Do I trust the man whose life is a maze of shadows, or do I trust this inscrutable warning from a stranger that suddenly felt woven into the very fabric of my existence? Go now. Trust me. His voice echoed, and with a jolt of instinct, I made my decision. I tore myself away from the billionaire, feeling the loss of his warmth like a physical blow, and launched myself toward the door. The group in suits erupted into chaos behind me, voices raised as they debated my escape. I barely navigated through, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I raced down the corridor. The systems around me felt alien, clinical, echoing my heartbeat in a terrifying symphony of survival. Turning a tight corner, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the polished glass walls, a lone figure racing against time. The familiar face staring back felt like someone else's life. Was I really ready for this, a world filled with betrayal, where loyalty felt like a double-edged sword? As I took the stairs 2 at a time, fear surged through me like a monster awakening. My feet barely touched the ground, and I couldn't escape the sharp imprint of the billionaire's pleading gaze from my mind. I didn't even know him yet. The shadow of an emotional connection haunted me, clouding my judgment. I skidded to a halt at the exit, heart racing wildly. An overwhelming sense of dread gripped my throat. What lay outside that door? Safety? More danger? My heart sank with a thought I couldn't suppress. What if I was running towards something far worse? In a moment of clarity, I remembered the intruder's words, those piercing eyes that dared me to heed the truth, urging me to act before it was too late. Had warned of a world cloaked in deception, one that I was unwittingly a part of. But could I barter my life, my sanity, for vague promises of safety? Keep moving. The voice of a suit from behind me snapped me back into focus. Panic gripped me as I flung open the door and bolted outside. The crisp air hit me like a wave, each breath laced with the scent of rain and the lingering tension of uncertainty. Still, the outside world felt different. It was alive but unfamiliar, full of a vibrancy that seemed to clash with the darkness I had just run from. My thoughts raced as I navigated the street's sharp shadows and glinting headlights cutting through the night. I had no destination in mind, just a desperate desire for distance. With every stride, uncertainty knitted itself deeper into the fabric of my reality. What if I disappeared from view? Would they still find me? Then, something unexpected broke through the fabric of my apprehension. From the corner of my eye, I noticed the kind demeanor of a woman passing by, her hand instinctively reaching to steady a young girl as she tripped on the sidewalk. In that fleeting moment, churning dread morphed into a flicker of humanity. Even amidst chaos, there was kindness. I could see the underlying currents of genuine connections in shared moments, threading through the fear. Perhaps even I could carve out something genuine from the shadows, the unexpected kindness weaving strength into my resolve. Determined, I kept moving, the rhythmic wedge of my footsteps solidifying my decision: stop running from the truth. But clarity eluded me. I knew this was only the beginning of a journey that could either bestow deeper ties or sever the fragile threads of my life. As the streetlights flickered above, a message buzzed in my pocket, jarring me from my thoughts. I fished out my phone, breath hitching in my throat when I saw the name flashing across the screen: unknown caller. Heart racing, I hesitated, wondering who could possibly be reaching out now. My fingers trembled as I pressed accept, anxiety bubbling through me like a boiling pot. Hello? My voice was barely a whisper, but in the silence that responded, I could feel the weight of another world waiting to spill into mine, a secret ripe for the picking that could change everything once more. "Are you safe?" came a voice, deep and urgent, sending a shiver down my spine. "Who is this?" I stammered, heart pounding. But before I could process an answer, the voice continued. "You need to listen carefully. They know you're out there. You don't have much time." The urgency in the voice pulled me back into the abyss, the stakes higher than I could grasp. My heart sank. As the walls of my reality began to crash in, the feeling of the enclosure grew tighter, leaving me breathless. This was far from over. What lay ahead felt even murkier than before, and I had stumbled right into the heart of betrayal, loyalty, and an emotional storm yet to unravel. The wind howled around me, dislodging bits of paper and litter that scudded across the pavement like lost souls. Each gust carried with it the weight of uncertainty, twisting my insides into tight knots as I sought refuge from the storm inside and out. I could hardly process the urgency in that mysterious voice on the line, trembling on the precipice between fear and instinct. "Who are you?" I repeated, the words barely escaping my lips, drowned in the roaring adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Someone who knows what you've stumbled into," the voice insisted, its tone grave, sending an icy chill straight through me. "They will come for you. You need to comply with their demands. If you want to stay safe." The threat hung in the air, suffocating. I swallowed hard, gripping the phone tighter as if it were a lifeline thrown into churning waters. "What demands?" "There's no time. Keep running, keep moving. I'll get back to you. You're not alone in this. Trust no one, especially not him." There was a pause, ominous and clipped. "Get to the old cafe on 6th Street. Trust me. You may find someone who can help." The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at the glowing screen in disbelief, heart pounding against my ribs like a caged animal. The mention of the billionaire sent searing burns of tension through my chest. Could I truly trust anyone at this point? My mind flitted back to the torrent of emotions that had rushed through me when we locked eyes. The uncertainty, the fleeting connection, the way he seemed to understand the shadows that danced in my own heart. But now, I was being told to stay away. What did that mean for both of us? Did he know what they were after? As I wrestled with the turmoil brewing inside, I zeroed in on my surroundings. Familiarity slipped away as the streets warped into a hazy blur of indecipherable faces and alleyways. I had to find safety, and maybe just maybe answers. That I turned sharply and started towards the cafe, navigating the treacherous web of night. With each hurried step, a sense of cool resolve began to take root, despite the flame of fear that flickered within me. The idea of returning to face the billionaire gripped me, a reckless urge entwined with this aura of danger that threatened to swallow me whole. And yet, the notion of doing this alone felt insurmountable. As I neared the cafe, the sound of laughter spilled out onto the street, a clang of glasses mingling with shared stories, the vibrant warmth stark against the biting air. Did the people inside know the world that lurked just outside their doors? This was a stark contrast to the chaos I'd fled from, but it also felt like a cruel reminder that lives could intertwine in the face of disaster. I hesitated at the entrance, a pulse of doubt mounting alongside the growing sense of urgency. Cautiously, I stepped inside, the warm air wrapping around me like a welcome embrace. The faint aroma of brewing coffee swirled in tandem with the sweet scent of pastries, a comfort that felt momentarily tranquil in the eye of the storm I'd just waded through. With frantic eyes glancing around, I searched for anything or anyone that might signal safety, a sense of belonging. Then I spotted her, a woman in a faded leather jacket seated in a corner, her posture relaxed yet attentive, a nondescript aura that felt oddly inviting. It was as though she had seen more than she was prepared to share. Before I could second-guess myself, I approached her table. Are you the one who can help?" She looked up, her eyes probing mine with equal parts curiosity and caution. "You're braver than you look," she said, with a slight tilt of her head, gesturing for me to sit. "But bravery isn't going to save you. You need a plan. Do you know what's happening?" I can't. The words tumbled from my lips like marbles off a ledge, reckless and unchecked. I don't even know who I should trust. Trust can be a loaded weapon, my dear. She leaned in, a low tone softening her words, and right now, every member of that billionaire's world has their eyes on you. You've caught their attention, and they won't rest until they claim what they want. Fear clamped down hard on my chest as I fought back the rising tide of panic. I'd seen the lengths of betrayal already. I was haunted by it now, but to what extent? How was I to navigate this world built on deception? Who are they? I pressed, desperate to correlate the pieces of my unfolding reality. They want something valuable, and they suspect you have a piece of the puzzle, she said. Something the billionaire may have given you, whether intentionally or not. And now they're coming. A cacophony of worry and bewilderment surged as her words slipped into my consciousness, flooding me with dread. The warmth of safety I'd passed through moments ago felt like a distant memory. Suddenly, the seductive hum of laughter was replaced with the gnawing knowledge of danger lurking behind jovial facades. Suddenly, the door swung open, and the smile faded from the woman's face. The entrance was now filled with imposing figures, their dark clothes stark against the brightness of the cafe. My breath hitched in my throat as their sharp eyes scanned the room, revealing the reality I desperately wanted to deny. "Get out," the woman whispered sharply, but it was too late. How could I escape this nightmare that had braided itself so tightly into my life? As I caught a glimpse of their determined expressions, the horrifying realization settled on me like a shroud. This was only the beginning of a far bigger storm, and I had unwittingly become its focal point. Just then, I locked eyes with one of the men, a chilling recognition igniting a flame of memory. It was one of the suited figures from before. The man who had instigated my flight, the one who had lured me into this dark game. And he was right there, closing in, terror creeping through my veins like ice. "Run!" I shrieked, the command erupting out of me as instinct took over. My heart pulsed in sync with the thundering footfalls that echoed behind me. Without thinking, I felt the rush of adrenaline ignite my senses as I dashed for the back exit, desperation propelling me forward like a bullet launched from chaos. The scene behind me spiraled into a whirlwind of panic. I was in too deep, and now I was being thrust headfirst into an abyss I could scarcely comprehend. Would my fragile connection to the billionaire be my salvation or my undoing? I had no answers as I hurtled into the unknown, the shadows closing in, each heartbeat sinking with the chaos that threatened to engulf me. Rain began to pour as I stumbled into the back alley, the world behind me dissolving into a cacophony of shouts and clattering chairs. My heart raced, the adrenaline from fleeing mixing with the cold reality of my situation. I pressed my back against the damp, crumbling brick wall, trying to gather my thoughts amidst the pounding of rain and the beating of my heart. The icy droplets pushed down hard against my skin, grounding me in the moment, reminding me I was alive. Cold dread wrapped around me as I fumbled for my phone, desperate to get a sense of my surroundings, but the screen glowed dark. No service, no hope. The woman in the cafe had been right. I was marked, a target in this treacherous game, and the people hunting me were relentless. Suddenly, the flood of chaos was interrupted by a soft mewling sound. My eyes darted to the entrance of a nearby dumpster. There, huddled against the unforgiving rain, sat a tiny kitten, trembling and soaked to the skin. My heart twisted painfully, an innocent creature lost in a world that could be so cruel. I approached cautiously, my breath hitching in my throat. "Hey there, little one," I whispered gently, kneeling down. The kitten blinked up at me with wide, piteous eyes, its tiny body shaking with fear, mirroring my own turmoil. It was as if the universe had sent this fragile creature to remind me that there was still kindness amidst all the chaos. With trembling fingers, I scooped the kitten into my arms, cradling its warmth against my chest. It pressed close, seeking solace while the rain fell around us like bullets. For a moment, I could pretend everything would be okay. That I was just a girl saving a stray cat rather than a pawn in a game I didn't fully understand. But reality crashed back swiftly as the faint sounds of pursuit reached my ears, weaving through the rain. My moment of respite evaporated, and I quickly glanced around. There was no way I could go back through the cafe, they'd be watching for me now. A narrow path veered off to my left, a tangle of overgrown hedges and judging shadows. Without a second thought, I plunged into the thicket, clutching the kitten tightly, determined to find safety, to outrun the danger that stalked me. My senses sharpened with each step, the rain falling heavier as thunder rumbled ominously overhead. The road became a river, rushing with the memory of my fear and despair. I ducked beneath branches and squeezed through brush, all the while hoping that each step away from danger was also a step closer to understanding this labyrinth of betrayal and secrets. Finally, the underbrush opened up, revealing a small, abandoned storefront, its windows dark and shattered like hollow eyes watching me. A glimmer of familiarity sparked within. This place, the elusive site of a sanctuary, was where I had come before, a haven of solace amidst the noise. I hurried inside, cautiously emerging from the storm, finding the air still and somber. It was a ghost of a shop, filled with the remnants of a forgotten past. Dust motes swirled like tiny stars caught in the slant of dim light. The once vibrant hues of the decor were muted now, worn, and echoing the shadows that invaded my heart. I gently placed the trembling kitten on the floor, watching as it explored its confines cautiously. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to regain a sense of control. In the silence, I glimpsed reflections of my own fear in the kitten's wide eyes. I couldn't afford to falter. I had to figure out what the demand was and how I fit into this perilous puzzle. Yet the promise of safety felt bittersweet now, the danger doing more than just stalking me, it was at my very core. How could I navigate a world built on trust when every bond seemed to shatter so easily? As I leaned my head against the cool bricks, a flash of movement caught my eye. I turned to see a shadow pass by the window where dust longed to settle. Anxiety spiked within me. Were they close? My pulse quickened as I tiptoed to the broken glass, pressing myself flat against the wall, hoping for the smallest shred of luck. When I peeked out, dread twisted my stomach. Today's storm had not only brought me danger but was now inviting an unwelcome companionship. The figure loitering at the edge of the storefront was no stranger, it was the billionaire, his silhouette cut like a statue against the furious rain. I gasped softly, heart thundering. How had he found me? What was he even doing here? My mind raced, caught in a web of confusion. Did he come to help, or had he aligned himself with those who hunted me? Each possibility left me breathless, straddling the fragile line between dread and hope, but before I could decide, there was the unmistakable sound of footsteps growing closer, echoing ominously down the alley. The men were closing in. It felt like a relentless tidal wave that sought to drown any sense of safety. And just as I thought to leap for the door, something within me froze. I had to choose, risk everything and confront him, or turn away and leave the shelter of the moment. My heart thudded in erratic rhythm, a war waging within. Perhaps he held the key to my deliverance, or perhaps he was yet another trick of fate. As I clenched my fists, the ground beneath my feet trembled with thunder, reflecting the tempest raging in my mind. Would I accept help from the man who may well be the epitome of my ruin? Time seemed to slow, anticipation curling in the air as the door creaked, leaving me on the precipice of a fateful decision with nowhere left to run. The door creaked open wider, and the figure stepped inside, his drenched clothes clinging to his frame, the contours of his face shadowed by the dim light. The storm raged outside, a deafening symphony, but within this decrepit haven, we were suspended in a charged moment of uncertainty. My heart raced as I searched for understanding in his inscrutable gaze, but he remained a riddle wrapped in a storm. "You," he breathed, leaning slightly against the door, his voice a low rumble that battled against the storm. I was worried. Worried? The word hung in the air between us, unsettling and yet unexpectedly warm. I felt the kitten brush against my leg, its presence a fragile reminder of innocence in this chaotic world. But I was lost amid conflicting thoughts. Could I trust him? Hadn't he left me vulnerable before? "What do you want?" I realized I sounded sharper than intended, cutting through the air like a knife. The last thing I desired was to appear vulnerable again, not in front of someone whose intentions lay beneath shadows and secrecy. "I don't." I don't want anything, really. There was hesitance, a slip of vulnerability. A stormy silence filled the room as he searched for words, the flickering light reflecting on his brow furrowed with worry. I wanted to make sure you were okay. The people looking for you. My breath caught in my throat. Despite everything I had faced, hearing someone acknowledge the looming danger in my life sent shards of fear piercing deeper. You know about them? How? He straightened, and in that moment, I saw a flicker of something. Regret? Determination? A fleeting crack in his confident facade that revealed a glimpse of humanity, raw and real. They've been after me too. I was hoping to keep you out of it, to protect you, but I didn't anticipate. Didn't anticipate what? Finding me cowering in an abandoned shop. I couldn't mask the bitterness that edged my tone. I had spent countless nights devising plans of escape, only to find myself hiding like a cornered animal. He took a step closer, the rain drumming against the floorboards, yet a warmth infused the air around us. I didn't think you'd be this brave. I looked at him, battling between disbelief and a strange urge to let his words wrap around me like a shield. Bravery doesn't pay for the dangers I face, nor does it explain the mess I'm in. What do you even know about courage? His eyes softened, revealing a sincerity that made my heart stutter despite the curling tendrils of fear. You might not see it, but you're surviving where most would crumble. What we facete requires strength. And I admire that, underneath the weight of his words, a flicker of hope stirred within. Perhaps I wasn't entirely lost in this maze of deception. Perhaps there was still room for allies. Yet the outside world's threats loomed just as heavy as the internal conflict brewed in my mind, but before I could respond, the pounding footsteps echoed once more, closer now, urgency crackling in the air like an electric charge. They're coming, and not just for you. He hesitated, locking eyes with me, and in a split second, I saw the unspoken burden he carried, the entrapment of power and secrets closing in on him too. We were both marked, each with a labyrinth to escape, and fear bound us together in this moment. His proximity invaded the space, the warmth of his body reaching me despite the chill of the storm. Friction coiled within my chest as unpredictability hung between us, a puzzle that begged to be solved. They're here for me too, he admitted, his voice lowering, and I can't let them find you. Not like this. The weight of his declaration washed over me, and I thought of the kitten, the small life still rooting itself in the crevices of hope. My mind raced, the dilemma percolating: trust him and his offer of a dubious alliance, or abandon this path and face the hunters alone. Suddenly, a crash shattered my contemplation, a stone hurled through the shattered window behind him, followed by shouts and rough voices coming closer. With the reality crashing in, I felt a surge of desperation. What do we do? He grabbed my hand, a swift motion that sent warmth radiating through me, one that promised safety, but was also a tether to uncertainty. We only had moments before they would burst through the door, all pretense stripped away. Follow me, he urged, pulling me toward the back of the store, the path leading further into the unknown. Mystery danced in his gaze, a shared understanding flickering between us that perhaps together we'd stand a fighting chance, but just as we reached the darkened corridor at the back, his grip tightened, and in that moment, something underlying shifted. He paused, facing me with fierce intensity before the pounding footsteps erupted through the door. The momentary silence screamed for a decision. Whatever happens, keep running, he breathed, and before I could fully comprehend, he was pushing me forward, shielding me from the impending chaos. Yet as I stumbled into the dark, accompanied only by the echoes of rain and pounding hearts, I couldn't shake the question that burned in my mind: could trusting him lead to salvation, or would it pull me deeper into the abyss? And as the world around me ignited in chaos, I caught one last glimpse of his face, the determination matched with something more painful, something that mirrored my own turmoil. I was thrown into the swirl of shadows, uncertain what awaited me, but time was slipping fast, and all I could do was hold my breath and pray as I plunged deeper into the unknown. The corridor swallowed me in darkness, the musty air thick with tension as I ran, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I stumbled over debris, a pile of broken crates, and the soft thud of my foot against the wooden floor sent a thrill of dread coursing through me. I had only moments to escape, to disentangle myself from the weight of uncertainty that loomed just behind me. Panic clawed at my throat, and I could almost hear the storm outside raging in tandem with my thoughts. Questions spiraled relentlessly. Where was he? Was he safe? Or had he sacrificed himself the moment he pressed me forward, sealing my fate in this unforgiving labyrinth of shadows and chaos? As I pressed deeper into the corridor, I caught fleeting glimpses of discarded memories scattered about, rusted tools, faded posters, and dust-coated remnants of a life long abandoned. Each step resonated with the bittersweet ache of loss, amplifying the emotions roiling within. My mind darted back to just moments before, the fleeting warmth of his grip, that pained look in his eyes, and the fleeting promise of camaraderie. But could I trust it was genuine? Suddenly, the familiar sounds of shouting filtered through the dimness behind me, urgent and raw. Their rancorous voices twisted my stomach in knots. The fear that brewed there melded with another sensation, an odd mix of resolve and hope. I had a choice now, a narrow path stretching before me that offered liberation or recklessness. I could abandon my instinct to flee at the first sign of danger, or embrace it, fueled by the possibility of survival. That I reached the end of the corridor, a heavy door standing before me. It appeared locked, its aged frame burdened with neglect, like the forgotten hopes of those who once passed through. My heart raced as I fumbled with the handle, the metallic coldness biting into my palm. The voices approached, their urgency piercing the solitude, and by some miracle, the door creaked open with a resonant groan. The world burst into color as I spilled out into a vast, deserted alley, the rain sweeping down like a shroud around me. I paused for a breath, realizing I was free, at least for the moment. But where would free lead me? Left or right? The echoes of my heart throbbed against the pounding storm. Distant echoes of laughter floated through the air, taunting me, whispering reminders of the life I had lost and the uncertainty that now lay ahead. That I hesitated, straining to catch any sign of him, but the rain masked the world, washing away my hope like ink on paper. This was a labyrinth of choices, and each turn could lead to safety or despair. Then, just outside the corner of my eye, something flickered, a shadow darting out from behind a dumpster. My instincts screamed, but something else pulled my attention. I inched closer, heart hammering as I pushed through the downpour. And then I saw him, crouched low, peering into the darkness. Over here. He hissed urgently, the shadows swallowing his features, yet the energy of his presence resonated through the air. Relief tinged the edges of my fear, flooding me with the warmth of possibility. But there wasn't time for relief. I was still exposed, still vulnerable. Are you okay? I asked, breathless, stepping closer as pulses of hope surged. That I am fine. We need to move, now. His voice was sharp, yet there was an undertone of reassurance as he reached out to take my hand again. They're closer than before I could follow him deeper into the alley, the weight of his words settled on my heart. I couldn't shake the feeling that our connection, the unspoken bond formed amid chaos, would carry us further than mere survival. We darted through the rain, my mind racing not just with the peril looming behind us but with the questions burdening my heart. What had he risked to find me? What were his true intentions? I longed to understand, and in my instinctive rush for safety, I knocked against something sharp, gasping as a sharp pain twisted through my side. The pain brought me crashing back to the present, tearing through my veil of thoughts. I stumbled, gritting my teeth as I felt hot blood trickling beneath my fingers. I could see his back stiffen, a sudden awareness taking hold as he turned. Let me see, he said, moving toward me with that frantic energy that imparted strength but also fear. You're hurt. It's nothing, just a scratch, I dismissed, but the crack in my voice betrayed the truth, and I knew I wouldn't be able to keep that from him for long. I could read the concern amid the chaos, reflected in his eyes, a mirror of the tumult inside me where pain and hope clashed. Don't lie to me, he urged, frustration cutting through the quiet, unsteady atmosphere. He stepped closer, coupling my chin gently, his thumb brushing across my cheek in a moment that felt achingly intimate yet charged with urgency. Despite the turmoil of emotions flooding through me, his touch sparked something deep, a spark of honesty, connection, and the unknown path waiting beyond this moment. The vulnerability rose within me like a flood, grasping at my heart, and for the first time, I breathed out loud the words that longed to be said, the truth hidden beneath layers of fear and doubt that if we keep running and never stop, what does that make us? The question hung between us, a fragile thread that bound our fates together, and I saw the realization flicker behind his determined gaze that I don't know, he admitted softly, his voice a mere whisper against the symphony of the storm. But am not ready to lose you not after everything. In that fragile moment, I could see the depths of his struggle reflected back at me, the responsibility weighing heavy on his shoulders like a shroud. Whatever ties bound us, they would tangle deeper still. However, before I could respond, a low rumble echoed in the distance, threatening, sinister, and too close for comfort. My breath hitched, and the vulnerability of his gaze twisted into something harder, more resolute. Whatever happens next, he started, stepping away slightly to observe the shadows creeping through the alley. We stand together. I promise, but the distance between certainty and danger narrowed, as the pounding of footsteps reverberated. Before I could steady myself, those voices echoed through the alley with cruel clarity, slicing through the volatile air, and just as the shadows closed in, a chilling scream pierced through the night, a sound laden with familiar a cry that choked hope and shattered the fleeting connection I thought was forming. It was then that I knew something was about to split our fates apart irrevocably. The deafening silence that followed the scream suffocated the warm air between us, and I felt my heart plummet. My instincts screamed for action, for escape, yet a heavy dread anchored me in place. I turned to him, searching for answers in his eyes, but his expression had darkened into something I couldn't decipher. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice trembling as panic unfurled within me again. He nodded sharply, eyes narrowing. "We need to keep moving. Now." There was no denying the urgency in his tone. I swallowed hard, the pain in my side becoming a distant echo against the storm gathering outside. We turned to flee deeper into the alley, but the air felt thick as if the shadows themselves were weaving tighter around us, threatening to close off every route of escape. As we hurried forward, dodging between crumbling bricks and discarded remnants of yesterday, a flicker of something warm caught my eye, a flickering light in the storm, just ahead. It danced like hope itself, drawing me closer despite the gnawing fear within me. Is that? I began, glancing at him. "I don't know," he replied grimly, matching my pace as we approached. It revealed itself as a small, makeshift shelter, illuminated by a solitary flame flickering in a tin can. The sight was absurd among the chaos that surrounded us, a flicker of humanity amidst the darkness. For a fleeting moment, I considered retreating to that fragile warmth. But the haunting echo of the scream whipped through my mind, and I knew better than to linger. "Maybe we should," I started, but he shook his head, cutting me off. "Come on. We can't waste time," he urged, grasping my wrist. The firm grip felt comforting, yet I could sense the electric tension sizzling between us. The shadows continued to creep, and the echo of the footsteps grew louder, a malevolent chorus promising to shatter every fragile thread of connection we had begun weaving. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being hunted, and not just for the souls we contained but for the hope, the spark that shone between us. "It's going to be all right," he murmured, as if sensing the swell of doubt rising within me yet again. "Trust me." "Trust?" The word fell from my lips like an empty promise, tainted by the uncertainty snaking around our situation. "You've made so many choices that put us here, that brought us to this moment." He faltered but met my gaze, a flicker of vulnerability passing through the harsh lines of his face. "I didn't ask for any of this either, but choices were made. You can't hold me responsible for what has happened, but I can fight for us." Tension crackled in the air as something deep in my chest squeezed painfully. Could trust still dwell amid the chaos? As I searched his eyes for answers, I caught another hint of movement. Shadows shifted alarmingly close. He must have sensed it too, because he didn't wait for me to respond. He turned sharply again, pulling me along, and we raced forward, driven by primal urgency. My breath came in bursts, every inhaled gasp heavy with the looming shadows behind us. Suddenly, without warning, the ground beneath my feet gave way and I stumbled, falling into an unforeseen hole. My instincts kicked and my hands pushed against the cold earth to steady myself. "Catch me!" I yelled, looking up just in time to see panic sweep across his features. He lunged, his hand reaching out, grasping for mine, but the moment was too fleeting, filled with a million possibilities. He missed, and I fell into darkness, the world above slipping away into a worrying silence. In that freefall, a wild thought surged, pulling me deeper into despair. What if he never realized I had disappeared? Would he continue to fight alone for what little hope lingered between us? Just as I thought I'd be engulfed by complete darkness, I crashed onto a hard but soft bed of wet leaves and dirt. The dampness seeped through my clothes, a chilling reminder of how haphazardly I had been thrust into this twisted fate. Groaning, I pushed myself up, desperately trying to calm the frantic thrum of my heart. As I blinked in the subdued light, I heard a voice above me, frantic and distant. "Where are you?" It called my name, an echo of desperation laced with fury. It was his voice, tinged with the tightness of panic that clawed at me like a predator. "I'm down here," I shouted, struggling to rise fully, brushing dirt from my clothes as the ground shook above. "Hold on. I'm coming." Before I could process the sheer determination in his tone, I heard it again, footsteps, wrong and heavy, rushing towards the mouth of the alley. A pair of shadows loomed, menacing in their form, advancing toward the flare of our flickering light. Go. I urged instinctively, adrenaline surging within me. "I'll find a way out. Just go." "No, I won't leave you." His voice was desperate, the raw determination spilling into his words like an avalanche. The shadows behind him shifted, and I saw their outline close in as he struggled against the storm swirling around him, and then, before I could stop him, he plunged into the depths of the darkness. My heart raced as I instinctively called out for him, but it was too late. He was enveloped in shadows. As the menacing figures surged forward, preparing to claim their due, I became painfully aware of how fleeting our connection had been. In that moment of stolen chance, I realized our hopes may intertwine, but fate remained the master of our sorrowful dance, forever dangling precariously between choices, echoes, and shadows. And when the breathless cry of his name slipped from my lips into the chaos, somewhere deep in the heart of uncertainty, I felt the final thread between us straining toward a breaking point. But hope simmered beneath the surface. The irony of our situation sat heavily inside me. We had only begun to unravel the layers of fear, just to find ourselves spiraling deeper into the unknown. The truth intertwined with uncertainty and shadows, the looming threat of losing him pressed against the severed fabric of our fates. I was left with one truth: everything was about to change irrevocably, and I had no idea how. The shadows loomed larger as the echoes of fear reverberated in my mind. I struggled to regain my footing, imperative to think clearly amidst the turmoil surrounding me. The upward surface felt distant, like a memory fading in the dimness. Panic licked at my corners, threatening to swallow me whole, yet I could hear the rush of footsteps above. "Please stay safe," I whispered to the darkness, to him, though I knew he couldn't hear me. A small sound, a breath of hope flickered through the damp air. With futile determination, I pushed back against the instinct to hide, forcing myself to move. Instincts kicked in, and I let the rustling leaves guide me, searching for a pathway through the thickening gloom. Each step sent an icy jab of fear up my spine, but I was propelled by diluted adrenaline. "Think," I ordered myself as I waded forward. "You've escaped before. You will again." Suddenly, a soft glint drew my attention, a broken shard of glass jutting out between the leaves. Cautiously, I crouched to pick it up, the rough edge sharp against my fingers. It felt like a weapon, a means for protection in the silent onslaught of impending danger. As I tightened my grip on the glass, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps gaining pace once more, displacing leaves and debris above. My heart raced anew, a relentless drum echoing in the hollow of my chest. I could only draw closer to the edge of the shadows, a physical representation of my indecision and fear, as darkness crept continuously on the heels of hope. "Why won't you just leave me alone?" I muttered, rage and despair mingling together in a perfect dance of defiance. But the ground above remained indifferent, as if the world had chosen to turn a blind eye both to me and to him, each lone figure lost in their own desperate chase. Without warning, I stumbled into an opening, a small cavern that appeared washed in a muted, ethereal glow. My breath caught in my throat as I took it in, not only the warmth of a gentle light, but the softness of the walls, the echoing whispers of freedom flowing from within. This place seemed alive, in stark contrast to the fragile sanctuary we had barely glimpsed moments before. I can be safe here, I thought, feeling a small flicker of something unquenchable spark within me, an ember of resilience igniting against the despair. I could stay hidden, carve out my own existence in this small expanse. But what would that mean for him? The thought of abandonment twisted sharply, grounding me against the chaos. The light pulsed in rhythm with my heart, as if inviting me to embrace it fully. Hope flickered, but I had no illusions. The shadows above still hung like a shroud, ready to be unleashed again. I felt torn, an innate conflict between the urge to hide and the need to reach for him, to fight for that fading connection, but before I could process anything further, I caught a familiar sound, his voice, muffled but urgent, filtering through the very shadows that sought to imprison me. That I won't give up. I'll find you. His promise reverberated in the depths around me, and I felt warmth wash over the cold uncertainty. The fraying tether of trust tightened somewhere deep, feeling stronger somehow with the palpable rhythm of his determination. But what if I couldn't get back to him? The thought clawed at my mind, threatening to unravel everything I believed I had planned. Just then, a rush of air flew past, like the brush of despair from unseen hands. Panic resurfaced, gnawing at my resolve, as I stumbled deeper into the light, a choice made with hope as its guide, desperately wishing I could bring him right into the warmth of my newfound shelter. Once more, the voice echoed, pulling me closer but remaining just out of reach. In that moment of sorrowful clarity, I realized we were never meant to act alone. Our paths wound around each other, twisting and knotting, even as fate sought to tear us apart. Shadows surged above, a reminder of our fragility, and yet, the realization flickered within me, he was still fighting. My fear lightened slightly in response, the promise of connection shimmering in the dark. If he still felt the tether pulling him toward me, a deeper bond was growing, a shared determination to stand against the storm. But then I sensed a looming presence behind me, unsettling in its urgency. I turned, body tense, heart in a calamitous thrum. From the edge of the glimmering light, a figure emerged, a silhouette woven from the darkness we both fought against. "Why are you so intent on chasing shadows?" Their voice dripped like honey, laced with a sinister undertone. I stumbled back instinctively, the shard of glass now feeling annoyingly small in my grasp. With the space closing around me, I understood one undeniable truth. Dread clung to the air. We had only just begun to unravel the mysteries that bound us. The looming danger felt more pronounced than ever, and as I battled against unearthed fears, the shadows didn't just threaten to engulf me, they threatened to pull him down with me. And in that charged moment of uncertainty, I felt the thread of our connection about to snap, torn between shadows chasing me and the unseen force drawing me to him, as the truth loomed before us both, ready to fracture a love still struggling to breathe among the tumult. I stood frozen, heart racing as the figure advanced, its face obscured by shadows, but the glint of malevolence in its eyes extinguished any flicker of hope within me. "You shouldn't be here," it said, a cruel smile stretching across its lips, inviting a chilling realization that sent a shiver down my spine. Here, in this fragile sanctuary lit by a glowing ember of hope, I was still a target, still a pawn in a game that felt far beyond my understanding, and yet, as the shadows swirled around us, an ember of resilience sparked anew within me. Whatever had conspired to bring this chaos to my doorstep would no longer dictate the course of my life. My fear morphed into a fierce determination as I clenched the shard of glass tighter, willing it to serve as a weapon and not a mere reminder of my terror. "Why do you seek to chase shadows?" The figure repeated, taking a step closer, swinging their gaze over me like a pendulum of doom. But there was something about their voice, a familiar cadence, one that nearly sent me tumbling back into despair. My thoughts raced, searching through the confusion to grasp onto something tangible, a recollection amid the terror. Suddenly, a hurling memory erupted, a face flashed through my mind, one I remembered during whispers of his name, a fleeting connection in the web of chaos we wove. You, I breathed, recognition sparking. You're one of them. My voice wavered, but my resolve held steady, grounded by the connection I formed with the billionaire and the spirit of defiance that fueled me. Yes, the figure sneered, stepping into the stuttering light, revealing the sharp angles of a face I had seen before, a mirrored reflection of everything threatening to engulf me. And you think you can outrun this? Create your own sanctuary? For a moment, inside that hollowed darkness, uncertainty wrestled with my instincts. I felt the frantic pulse of my heart hammering against the truth that was swirling beneath the surface. This wasn't just about me anymore, not just about my escape. This was about a choice between holding on to hope and forfeiting everything I had fought for. A voice pierced through the darkness beyond the shrouded entrance, the rich timbre unmistakable. Stop. The command rolled through the air like thunder, filling me with a surge of relief and purpose. It was him. The billionaire had returned. I felt my breath catch under the weight of our connection as the shadows shifted, a presence solid and fierce that he stepped into view, the rain drenching him like a tempest of chaos that had stormed through our lives. You will not take her, he declared, each word deliberate, a guardian shield standing against the chaos behind his eyes. My heart swelled with unexpected emotion, for no matter how much I had doubted his intentions before, it was now so clear had come back not just for himself but for me, and as he stood firmly, a resolute stance amidst the boiling storm that was closing in, the fragile tether between us grounded my courage. Slowly, I began to ease back into the shadows, away from the approaching threat. The figure before us faltered momentarily, sensing that even in the darkest of places, two souls could stand united and face the shadows. Everything you were promised, the figure spat back, is now at risk because of her. But there was a flicker of doubt creeping into their voice now. I could see a fear of losing control over the chaos they had fostered. Take your risks. I won't let you take her, the billionaire thundered, moving closer, protecting me behind him, his fierce gaze locked onto the sinister force before us. The pledge echoed with strength, a promise carved from the trembling truths we had both faced and conquered. The shadows surged momentarily. I could sense the storm battle against this newfound bond. They'll come for you both, the figure hissed, stepping backward, uncertainty rippling across its features. You can't win against this. Watch us, he shot back, confidence rising in a palpable wave. And in that moment, I understood. Together, against the chaos, we forged a new path, and that path resonated with strength, defiance, and a burgeoning connection that seemed to weave with the shadows. The figure withdrew, forking over the invisible trepidation between us. You'll regret this. When the storm comes, you'll wish you'd never crossed me, it spat before vanishing into the thick veil of darkness, leaving behind a heavy silence marked by the echoes of manipulation and fear. In the following silence, I turned to face him, breathless, my heart urging me forward. He stepped toward me, and I searched his eyes for answers, for the truth that had eluded us both in this chaotic unraveling. Are you okay? He murmured, taking me in, his expression softening. I'm here, I whispered, an unexpected warmth unfurling inside of me. And you? I was terrified I had lost you. The confession hung precariously in the air between us, and I could see the weight we both bore threading our fates together, deepening the connection that held us amid chaos. I won't let anything take you from me again, he promised, pushing back a few stray wet strands from my face, the warmth of his presence igniting something deep within. This man, once a figure of uncertainty and enigma buried in a labyrinth of secrets, had transformed into someone who embodied my resilience, my hope. But as the storm outside raged on, there was an undeniable realization that loomed above us, cloaking our newfound bond. We may not win this war, I spoke softly, but we're stronger together. We rise up against the unknown. He stepped closer, and in that raw space between us, vulnerability mingled with strength. And we will, come what may, he replied, eyes glowing fiercely with resolve. And just like that, we forged an unbreakable bond through the crucible of fear and uncertainty. As the wind howled, the rain lashed around us, and the shadows sought to reclaim their dominion, we turned our backs to fear, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever came next. A spark ignited deep within me, a whisper of promise that whispered through the storm, resounding louder than any doubt. Together, we would transcend the shadows. With renewed courage swelling inside, I faced the future, heart pounding, knowing that no matter the peril that awaited, love twisted beneath the surface brighter, fierce, and unyielding. Whatever comes next, I breathed, threading my fingers with his, we face it together. Outside, the storm raged, but together, we met the darkness, ready to ignite our path forward. And maybe, just maybe, the echoes of our past would lead us into a light we'd both been waiting for, the bright promise of hope entwined in love, fierce enough to weather any storm. In that moment, as our shadows blended with the night, one truth resonated above all else: in the heart of every tempest, the strength of unity burns brighter than the shadows that seek to extinguish it. And as I faced the unraveling tapestry of destiny, I knew we would emerge anew, together unbreakable.